Creeps, and welcome to Fright Club. I'm Gav, he's Danny.
Hello.
And we're the Fright Club NI, and this is another episode of Monday Night Frights, and we thank you for joining us for this brand new episode. And as always, we appreciate your love and support that you've been showing us so far. Tonight we're going to be talking about the ultra-violent Battle Royale, classic Japanese film from 21 years ago this was released.
Yep.
That I rewatched yesterday. Hadn't seen it in quite a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Big fan, Danny?
Oh yeah, I was saying even watching it yesterday and I hadn't seen it. So she was watching for the first time, and then I was thinking, I was like, God, when was the last time I watched this? And it must have been when I was a teenager. I think I watched it first when I was maybe 15 or 16. I must have watched it. And I just remember at the time being like, whoa, like it's really like violent. As I said, it's ultra violence. It's probably why we're so desensitized now. But yeah, it was, I enjoyed it. And even going back now, I'm watching it, I still enjoy it, but now I can kind of see that it's quite cheesy, and even the violence is cheesy. You know, it's all very much hammed up violence, but also kind of like teenage angst and teenage romance. And you know, if it wasn't for the violence, this would be like some kind of American Pie almost, like not as obviously like sexual, but just the way it's like, you fancied me? I fancied you too. Oh my God, we fancied each other this whole time. And then all the way like love suicide pacts and stuff throughout it. It's very sort of like teen romantic drama, with a dash of ultra violence.
Just a small dash of ultra violence.
Just a small schmeckling. Yeah,
like I've forgotten that there is a decent amount of humor in it as well, like quite dark humor. That I didn't get the first time I'd watched it all those years ago. But I've mentioned before in previous episodes that I kind of got into foreign language movies whenever I started working on HMV in 2001. So this film would have already been out. However, it was maybe a year or two after that I really started getting into kind of Japanese films and French cinema and stuff like that. So
I think this may have been one of the first foreign language films I watched. I think, if not the first foreign language film I watched. I can definitely remember it being the earliest one. I just remember because Nanahara, the main character, for some reason that name has just stuck with me in terms of like just Japanese character names, and it would just be like sort of like a go-to Japanese character name, Nanahara, because it's such people are just constantly shouting it in this film. But yeah, I'm pretty sure actually maybe this was my first foreign language film.
Sweet, nice one. So it was released in 2000, as we said, and it was directed by Kenji Fukasaku, and it was written by his son Kinta, who actually went on to direct the sequel because unfortunately Kenji passed away from prostate cancer a couple of years after this film was made, just as they were about to start production on the sequel. And it is based on a book as well, of course, from 1999 by Kushan Takami, and that's the book there. This is an edition which was released in 2007, I believe, but it's fucking stunning, beautiful cover, and I love the
thick boy.
It is thick. It's like 600 odd pages, and the inside has the map.
Oh, it's the map
with all the danger zones and stuff, and obviously this isn't the exact map that's in the movie, but it's modified a little bit. But yeah, I haven't read the novel yet, and I keep saying to myself every year, I promise. I've left out a few times. I'm like, I'm going to read it this year.
Or then one ends up in a pile, like this lot here.
I know. I need to get around to fucking get my finger out and reading it. But yes, there's obviously there's been different kind of adaptations of it, and there was a manga as well. That
I went for
go
our way of doing it, but wait, no, it's actually the other way around for mangas. So this is volume 2 of the manga, which again, I mean, this makes the movie look quite tame in terms of content. I mean, you can tell just how old. When was this? Hold on, I'll find out actually when this was published, because there's even some of the stuff on it. It's just like it's very of its time. You know,
is that
2003?
Is that a Playboy review on the back? I see there.
Yeah, this is 2005. This was released 5 years after the film came out. But yes, it had a Playboy review for this particular manga. 4 bunnies, 4
Classic.
Playboy bunnies, out of what I assume is probably 5 Playboy bunnies.
Nice.
Entertainment Weekly. Royale hits all the manga bases without being Sailor Moon silly.
Very good.
So yeah, but
Happy days.
that's, I think we've had that kicking around. I think we got it shortly after we watched the film when we were younger. I'm pretty sure my mom did not know what she was buying, to be honest, when she bought that. But yeah, it's all right. It's okay.
I can't imagine she knew what the fuck you were reading whenever you were 15 or whatever age you were.
No.
16 or whatever.
No. To be fair, she bought us her first Eminem albums and all as well, and was just like, fire away. Just don't repeat any of it. You're grand. You're flying, son. You're flying.
But yeah, we need to speak about the main actor in this, Takeshi Kitano, who is an absolute legend in his home country of Japan. Of course, he's a massive, massive celebrity. He was a talk show host, a comedian. He hosted Takeshi's Castle.
Yes.
And he was a film star and a director as well. But he had more success in those realms outside of Japan. Like, he's been in loads of movies from in the 80s and 90s, and I remember seeing some of his films, and some quite violent films, but some good humorous films as well. Like, I remember he was in in Violent Cop and Boiling Point, and I think he directed a lot of those movies as well. So I mean, he's a massive, massive star. He was in Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence as well with David Bowie.
I didn't know that.
Hanabi, which is one of his most famous and critically acclaimed films, which he directed and starred in, and Zatoichi, the Blind Swordsman, which is based on a classic kind of myth in Japanese legend, which is a fucking amazing film as well.
Awesome.
He did that a wee bit later on in his career, but he is an absolute icon in Japanese cinema and just in Japanese culture in general. But he's huge in US and Europe as well because of the films that he had done in his career. And obviously Quentin Tarantino's a massive fan, like, of course he is. Mm-hmm. And Tarantino's a massive fan of this movie.
Oh yeah.
And, he spoke about it a lot in interviews over the years and said it was one of his favorite films of all time. And to the point where he cast one of the actresses that's in this in Kill Bill.
That's the thing. I didn't realize that when I had originally watched it, and it was last night, and then I were sitting, and I goes, "Is that your doll from Kill Bill?" And then I was like, I was thinking that too, but I didn't want to sound racist. I was like, fair enough. But I was like, no.
Obviously, you don't want to be. Yeah, you want to sound racist.
You don't want to just assume, but yeah, it was good to kind of see. It was like, of course, and then I was like, of course, Quentin Tarantino was a fan of this movie, like ridiculous death scenes and loads of blood and gore. Yeah. You can understand why he's a fan.
Yeah, he's a massive fan of Japanese historical movies anyway. Obviously, we did Kill Bill. He's a massive fan of the Kung Fu genre, and he had loads of Japanese legends in both of those films. But yeah, Takeshi Kitano, what an absolute legend this guy is. And he plays the teacher, Kitano, who kind of, I suppose, he's the kind of brainchild behind this whole taking this class to the island where they eventually have to take part in this horrific game of survival. But
being like, fair enough. Like, I'm sure teachers who do watch Battle Royale probably are like, if only.
I know.
If only those wee shits would deserve it.
Because there's that scene at the start where he gets stabbed in the leg, and he just kind of looks around and he's like, "Fuck's sake, not again!" Almost like, because clearly
happens so often.
This stuff has happened before, and then he gets the revenge on his wee mate Nobu later on.
That's the thing. I love that. That's a fantastic scene. But what I really like about this film is that we kind of get these subtle flashbacks of context without, it doesn't take a real long time, and it doesn't necessarily flesh out too much, but it gives us just enough to know context for each of the individual characters that need it. And I think it's fantastic, and having just those wee kind of moments, and they just kind of happen. They just happen within the story, and then maybe you'll get like a bit of text with like an internal monologue. But that's it. And I really like that. I like those little drops of context.
Yeah, I think actually we could have had a little bit more of them. in the
Probably
movie, to be
cool.
honest with you, to flesh out the characters a little bit more and to make you care about them. But yeah, they're very short, and they're only in there when you kind of need them. That kind of splits up the violence of what's happening on the island.
Yeah.
So just to kind of summarize the movie, it's set in Japan, obviously, in a time when just it's chaos. There's unemployment. A lot of school kids have not been going to school, and the kind of juvenile system is out of control. And the government have put together this act called the BR Act, Battle Royale Act, obviously, where they essentially cull the youth system in a very horrific way, and they choose at random. You find out it's at random. They choose different classes to go to this particular island, where they have to basically kill each other. There has to last man standing. One left alive is basically the theme of the movie, which is crazy because a couple of years ago there was a game that hit called Fortnite, and it's one of the biggest games ever, and it's crazy, and kids are loving it, and adults are loving it, and it's kind of taken over gaming. And that whole concept was based on this film.
Yeah. It's the same. Well, I mean, so many things have sprung from it. Hunger Games as well. You look at that, and it's kind of people go, "Oh, well, that's obviously based on Hunger Games." You're like, "No, well, actually, Battle Royale came 1st. This notion of a Battle Royale. I wonder if I assume there's some sort of pre-Battle Royale out there somewhere. Not that I know of, but yeah, there's so many things now that you get that have spawned then from this notion of put everybody on an island and make them pit them against each other. What was the one that James Gunn did in The Office? It's obviously based off an experiment. The Belko experiment.
Oh, yeah, the Belko experiment.
Yeah, but again, similar kind of idea, putting people together on an island in a room in an office in that instance, and letting them fight off against each other.
The sort of generic concept of, or even let's go further back. Let's just take the title Battle Royale. That was influenced by wrestling, of all things. A massive wrestling fan. One of the sort of famous and most popular wrestling matches over the years has been the Battle Royale match, where 20 wrestlers would go into the ring, and to win you have to throw everyone over the top rope, and it's last man standing. Whoever's in the ring at the end wins. And obviously that's changed a little bit with the Royal Rumble match, whereas instead of starting with 20 or 30 men come in every 2 minutes. But the basic concept of the Battle Royale started in wrestling, and yeah, it's been played around with in films over the years, like the likes of The Running Man. Obviously it was a massive film in the 80s starring Arnie, and based on the Stephen King book. I think the novel's quite different to the book. Sorry, the novel's quite different to the film, but I think the film was more influential on something like this film. It's obviously a game show where they have prisoners out in a special zone, and they're being hunted down, and they have to kind of survive as such. So it's that same concept, really. But as you say, yeah, the Battle Royale film has spawned so many spin-offs and, well, not spin-offs, but copycats, really, I suppose you could say. I mean, Hunger Games is very much, they've taken that idea. Obviously, they've created their own lore and kind of backstory and all that kind of stuff, but they've essentially done the same thing. And even another film called The Condemned, which was a WWE film, co-produced by them, starring Steve Austin. It was essentially the same. They just threw a lot of people on an island. They all had to kill each other. It wasn't children, right enough. It was like prisoners and people that had done bad things over the years. So I suppose that's what's different about the Battle Royale film, is that this is fucking kids, man. They're like 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, and they all have to kill their best friends, essentially.
Yeah, it's the opening of it, that initial opening where it's obviously a game's just finished, and the wee girl, the victor's coming out to the media frenzy, and it's literally like a wee girl hugging her doll, but soaked in blood with this massive grimace on her face, and it's a haunting image from the outset, and I think it really sets the tone perfectly for what's to come, because it is a very kind of child soaked in blood holding the doll smiling is a haunting thing to see.
Have you seen the sequel? Requiem.
I'm trying to think. When you said about the sequel, I was like, it rings bells, but I don't know. I can't remember if I've seen it or if I've just maybe seen the box or something.
Yeah.
There's a small part of me that's like, I might have seen it, but I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but apparently, that little girl at the start of this film turns up in the sequel at some point, as obviously a slightly older version of herself, but that character turns up in the sequel. So I might actually go and check out now that I've kind of read a little bit more about the sequel.
Yeah, it must. We could maybe do season 3 Battle Royale 2.
Yeah, potentially.
We'll see.
We'll see how it goes. So the budget for this was $4.5 million, which is quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it reined in about 30 million, just over 30 million in the box office. So it did pretty well worldwide, and then obviously it really kind of took off once it got a DVD release, as a lot of foreign film movies do. That's when I first seen it and heard about it was on DVD, and it just really kicked off and became a bit of a cult classic then after that, and loads of collectors were buying the different versions of them. I remember there was a slipcase version as well, which I have, and it's fucking awesome. I'm pretty sure it was Tartan released them.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, have you seen the new 4K release that's coming out?
I haven't, no.
Really, really nice. I think HMV have the exclusive to it.
Nice.
But I think it's from the same ones who are actually doing the Blu-ray release for Host.
Oh, right, okay.
I think they're doing like
is it Second Sight?
Maybe.
They did the Dawn of the Dead special release as well.
Really, really nice box art and stuff. But yeah, there's a few different ones. I was having a wee nosy actually last night. Seen it and was just like, oh, sure, a nice fold out box with art cards and stuff. But yeah, awesome. It's always I love the images and stuff they use. Like the promo pictures for this film were great, with like the class photo with the X's through it and stuff. Yep. Fantastic, great art,
fucking brilliant. Conceptually, the film's just amazing, and I was reading a little bit about how the idea came around and stuff, and the director, Kenji Fukasaku, he directed the film. It was his son who wrote the screenplay, but whenever they were coming up with the idea, apparently it was drawn from obviously the novel, but he was drawn towards the novel because whenever he was younger and his classmates, he was taken away from his school. It was during World War II, and he was taken to this kind of factory, I think, but the factory was bombed. It came under artillery fire, and a lot of his classmates died, and he had to literally use their bodies to survive. Like, he had to hide under their bodies, and he had to also dispose of the corpses. So he said that he felt a connection to the novel when he saw it, and he just felt like he had to be the one to bring it to the screen. So very, very interesting kind of reason behind why you would want to do a project.
Yeah.
It was scored by, I hope I say this name right, I'm really sorry if I say it wrong, Masamichi Amano, and performed by the Warsaw Philharmonic Orchestra. Fantastic score as well. Like, it's very over the top, it's very kind of choral-esque, isn't it? It's like choirs, and it reminded me of like The Omen or something.
Yeah, there's some fantastic. It's towards the end of the film, and you get really nice, like some really nice choir stuff in there. Just real angelic, like everything's coming to an end, and you just they can see the light, sort of thing. Because I love how bright as well it gets. At the end of this film, it starts off quite dark and dingy and nighttime-y. But as it starts to brighten up, and it's a new day and stuff. And I think I love that. I love the scenes, especially when they're out by the sea. All the shots where it's like coastal, lovely, fantastic.
Yeah, I do love when they're just on the edge and you can see the sea, and the sea can see you. But I see that now.
The sea sees me.
There's some really gorgeous images in this. There's an image near the start, which is, I want to say it's like of a lighthouse or something, but it's like an orange sun in the background, and it's just a silhouette, and it's fucking gorgeous, man. There's so many lovely shots.
There's a lot of callbacks to like locations within the film, because you get that, and then later on you get it again when it's bright and it's just this white column of a lighthouse, and it's, you know, when the girls brought him back and stuff, but you get that nice kind of like shot that kind of starts at the bottom of the lighthouse and looks up it, and it's really nice, really, really nice.
I was reading a little bit about the author before he wrote this. He kind of wrote it in secret, to be honest with you. From what I took out of my doing a bit of research, he posed as a reporter when he was writing the novel, because obviously it's quite anti-establishment, and he didn't want to get killed, I suppose. I know that sounds extreme, but you know, it's extreme for a reason. You know, the novel's extreme and the themes are extreme, and a lot of the themes in the book are very similar to the film as well. But I think it's a little bit more political and anti-establishment in the novel than it is in the film. But apparently, when the novel was finished and he tried to enter competitions and get a bit of recognition, he was rejected from a lot of different competitions and awards and that kind of thing. So, you know, it's nice to see that it finally got picked up. Had it not been picked up by the director, though, who knows, it may be a novel that nobody ever sort of heard of, which is always a shame.
Yeah.
What are the kind of, just before we get into the nitty gritty and stuff, what would you say would be, like, we always like talking about themes and stuff, and obviously there's the anti-establishment theme there. Is there any other themes that you kind of took away from it?
Yeah, I feel like obviously there, as I said, there's kind of teenage angst. It's all, I think there's a lot about like puberty in this. It's all about sort of relationships, obviously, between boys and girls and stuff in this, and how they interact with each other. And I think there's a lot about kind of maturity there, especially with Nanahara. His whole kind of thing is about like, I need to be able to defend you, but I don't know if I'm grown up enough yet. You know, he doesn't necessarily say he needs to be a man. He just says, I need to be a grown up. And he's like, I'm constantly going to be running until I achieve being a grown up. But even in that, he can't become a grown up because the grown ups he's had, his influences ran away and died. You know, I think there's a lot about that, and I think there's a lot about child and parent relationships. You see that with the, you know, with the teacher and his daughter, and how she hates him, but the daughter he wishes he had also kind of hates him, but is, you know, she likes him. She's the only decent child in the film. She's the only decent person, and he wishes he had that, but in his actions she turns against him, sort of thing. Not fully against him, but I think there's a lot in there about relationships between parents and children, and in relationships with the teenagers as well. Romantic and platonic, you know, the friendships and stuff, but also how they cannot be friends, or they lie to each other, and it's all very high drama through a lot of this. And again, a lot of it is pure hammed up cheesy drama, and you've got obviously the whole kind of cliques with the girl crowds and stuff. But yeah, I think it's a lot of relationship stuff, relationshipy.
I think that's the word I was going to use. It's all about relationships, different relationships. You know, friendship, I think, is at the forefront. Obviously, you have certain sort of kind of love aspects happening there. There's a wee bit of a love triangle, and there's, you know, different things happening on the island as well. But the relationships between adults and children is quite important to this, and how adults perceive kids. You know, because essentially they're looking down on children, and I know this whole concept only happened because of how kids reacted to whatever happened in Japan at the time. But, you know, it is chaos. And you get a little bit of kind of backstory at the start. It tells you about, you know, you get some dialogue on the screen that tells you what's been going on and stuff. But
it's a bit of a sort of Akira vibe about it at the start.
It is kind of set in the near future. I mean, it's not futuristic, but it is.
It just says the turn of the millennium. So I think we're meant to take it that it's not long after the millennium happens that it's sort of, and I think again that it's still kind of playing on that kind of the hangover of like Y2K and stuff. It's still kind of playing a bit off that. But yeah, as you say, it's not the too distant future, but kids have risen up and the parents are scared, so the adults will kill.
I think
Well, have them kill each other.
I know. I think what it does is it highlights. Obviously, you have the gore and the violence and stuff, but even just outside of the actual uh, blatant violence, you have kind of another type of horror in an unlikely place in a high school. You know, you have teachers who, well, this one teacher, I suppose, but who is kind of throwing these kids on an island and they have to kill each other to survive. And I mean, just the horror of that is so terrifying. And you know, it's the idea that a government would, you know, want this to happen, or not just want it to happen, but push it to actually happen.
Approve it, and also so because obviously there's the military are there as well, and it's very clearly state funded mass murder.
I think it's supposed to also kind of hark back to World War II. You know, the idea that, you know, like the Nazis and stuff just killed kids willy nilly, and even in Japan, you know, there was a lot of genocide, and different countries had their own genocides and stuff. So it is about horror in unlikely places, and this film does that amazingly.
Yeah, it's the horror of you know, as I said, I think it was was it in our last video or the video before, I said the scariest thing, the thing I find scariest is things that could be real rather than ghoulies and goblins. And this film definitely, you know, what's to stop a government from buying an island and throwing a lot of people on it and be like, kill each other, and whoever wins gets to go. And I mean, actually from this film we find out that even if you win doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get to go free.
Aye, there's a lot of question marks over the validity of this competition or game or whatever you want to call it. So it's a strange one, but it's a great fucking movie, and you know, I'm so glad that we chose it for this season because I really wanted to rewatch Enemy. But we'll kick off into some of the scenes that we enjoy and talk about certain little plot points that happen in it. Straight up, I mean, it fucking starts with that amazing overture. The Requiem by Giuseppe Verdi. It's so over the top. It's just like in your face, and then you get
it's that, and it's put against those crashing waves, and they're proper like, and the music's going with it, and you're just like,
it's so over the top, and it's great. I fucking love it. And then you get this kind of backstory where it tells you about, you know, employment rates or at 15% and stuff like that, and there's like 800,000 or close to 1 million kids are out of school and all that sort of stuff that's going to be going on. So it kind of gives a bit of backstory as to why this thing is actually happening. And then you get the shot of the little girl, which is just what a way to start a film. If you didn't know anything about this film or you hadn't seen it before, you'd just be going, that creepy little girl, because she smiles as well.
She's got this massive, and the news report's kind of saying, it's like, oh, the winner's coming out, out. It's a girl. She's smiling, and you know, she's kind of giving a play as we watch it as well. Yeah. And I think we're meant to feel like same kind of like they're obviously all hyped, but we're a bit kind of like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? You know?
Yeah.
And all we've had pre that is they've set up this BR program, but we don't even get Battle Royale at that point. We get like a big logo, the big like stamp logo that says BR on it. But then it's not until after we have that bit that we then get the second title credit. It gets 2 title credits, which I like. The stamp one, and then we get the Japanese logo comes up, and then we get in big, bold, italic letters, Battle Royale. And it just, I love that. I love where we said we didn't like those big, bold, shiny metal italic letters at the start of Freddy's Revenge. In this one, the big red letters. It's almost the same thing, but it just works for this because I love the style in this movie of all the kind of credits and titles and stuff. I think they're fantastic, and I love the whole the way it's all written. You know, when you get the kind of internal monologue. Bit subtitling, and it's just like right down the center of the screen, and sometimes it's against the black background, or sometimes it's just over the scene, but it still just looks, I think that looks really nice.
Yeah, it's a beautiful start to a movie, but I agree, the titles are great. And that happens before you find out actually what's happening, but just that little girl with her wee smirk and stuff. And I also think the fact that the reporter's kind of like, and there's a camera there as well, and they're like, oh, who's the survivor? It's a little girl. it kind of plays into the obsession that the media has with bad news, or not necessarily bad news,
Well,
but just
yeah,
horrible
it's
shit.
we see it, it's not just this film. We see it especially in the likes of Natural Born Killers and stuff. The media frenzy that comes out of violence, just violence in general, and especially when it comes from like kids, because that's the thing. I think even with Natural Born Killers is it's a young couple, and in this it's young people. The violence of children, I think, gets people kind of like, it's like, oh, they're going to be so young and innocent, but what happens when they're violent? And then I think there's an intrigue to that.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like a weird, sinister obsession that the media have, and then in turn we have with the media reporting it. And
yeah, because I mean, we still get that. We even from not even just with like films and stuff, we see it in like documentaries and news specials and stuff about actual, about actual like children who kill and stuff. I think there is a deep fascination with, well, why do kids do it? Is it nature or nurture and all that kind of stuff? So it kind of sends the media into a bit of a flurry.
Yeah. Again, that's something that they potentially could have played with a little bit more in this film. You see it a lot in The Running Man, which we mentioned earlier. Because it's a game show, so obviously there's going to be more cameras.
Hunger Games as well, with the way it's all kind of played out like a show, when they're getting they're not just being shown how to kill, but they're also being shown how to appeal to the camera and dressed up and all that sort of thing.
I know. So we cut to the kids and we meet a few of the kids, and obviously Nanahara is kind of the main kid in the whole movie. We find out that his mother's left and his father's committed suicide. I mean, that was fucking terrible scene.
Straight up was, because that's fairly early. That's even before we found out properly about the Battle Royale. It kind of goes from the opening credits into his story. We get that he's walking into the apartment and the dad's just swinging from an extension cord, but he's got like the toilet paper draped around his neck and with the writing all down it. But yeah, it's pretty, again, this film doesn't hold back. It just throws you in the deep end with the violence and tragedy of it all, really.
What was written on the toilet paper was something like, "You can do it."
You can do it. Yeah, it's Shiro go, was it go Shiro go, you can do it. Something like that there, because we don't actually find that out till later on in the film, when he's like walking along with the stick and he's trying to like mech it, he's trying to plow forward despite his injuries, and then we get the flashback that gives context to why he's trying so hard.
So it's quite a poignant scene, which you find out is even more poignant later on, because it helps him get through the whole thing at the very end of the film. And then basically you get a couple of short scenes where it shows you the chaos of the school, and you get that scene where Kitano gets stabbed in the leg, and the kids are going fucking mad, and the inmates are running the asylum, as they say in the wrestling world. But and then I suppose a short time after that, you get the same class are now on a school trip. They've been taken out on a bus, and they're going away somewhere they don't really know where yet.
We kind of get to see, I think, as well, the oh god, what's her name? Nanahara's girl.
Noriko.
Noriko. We get to see her. She's the only one that actually goes into the 7th grade class, and we get to see that wee bit of the relationship between her and the teacher.
Again, and very poignant scene.
Because she's the only one that turns up, and he's wiping away we've taken the day off, class B, and she's the only one that's come in for class. She's the only one that's actually doing what she's meant to be doing, going to school and learning. And but that's the thing. She kind of, she's being a good student, but then when he gets his leg slashed, she hides the butterfly knife. So she's kind of working for she's being decent to him, but she's also being decent to her friend. She's trying to cover up for her friend by taking the knife away.
I think it's just supposed to kind of highlight that she's just a good person in general. And she's trying to protect everyone. She just doesn't want anyone to be put into a horrible situation. Bad shit might happen, which obviously happens anyway. No, it's not that it's her fault, but so they're on the bus, and obviously they get gassed.
Yeah.
The fucking Nanahara wakens up and he looks around, everyone's sleeping. And you're like, what's going on here? Why is everyone sleeping?
It's
And
so
then you
strange
realize,
because it's just a cut. It's like
yeah,
nothing. We don't see gas coming in. We don't see it.
no,
We just see them. It cuts from them like chatting and having a laugh while taking Polaroid photos to them all being asleep. And you're kind of like, well, if they all, is it just a long trip? Have they all just
uh,
gone for a wee doze? And then he wakes up and looks down, and you see the driver and some like woman in like hostess wear wearing gas masks. They're wearing the big proper filtered gas masks. It's crazy
I
looking.
know. And then they get taken to
Mm-hmm.
this facility, which you don't really know what it is. It looks like a school, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's laid out like a classroom.
Yep.
And it's Class B. And then they see Kitano again, their former teacher, which is a shock to them. So he's clearly been away for some time.
Yep.
But there's two other guys in the room as well, which isn't part of their class.
Each corner of the
There's
room.
I can't remember their name. I know one of them's called Kawada, and I can't remember the other guy with the big orange hair. But they're made to look not part of this classroom. They're not wearing the uniform. You can tell they're outsiders, and they're a little bit older as well.
But they're also kind of cool guys.
Oh yeah, of course.
They're the cool guys.
Oh, they're not wearing ties, man. They're fucking cool.
Not wearing ties. One of them's got a bandana on. The other one's hair's all like. He looks like a Super Saiyan. I was looking at it. I was like, he looks like something from fucking Dragon Ball Z.
So, and then you kind of get the whole, why the fuck are we here? What's going on? Kitano, oh man, this whole scene, this whole sequence is just phenomenal. I love what he's wearing. He's wearing like
full tracksuit.
He's wearing like a pure tracksuit, I know. And his wee gutties and all, he's just like, fucking, he looks like a pure drug dealer.
It's the way he's getting on as well. He's just he's very sort of matter of fact, but also kind of playful in it. And especially when the videos, like my favorite thing in this whole scene is the video.
Oh man,
is the instructional video. I absolutely love it, and I love his reaction then when they start talking, like that there as well, because going along with it, he's being like, everybody say hello, everybody clap along.
I know.
And then he's just like, what? And fucking.
So one of the couple of people start whispering, and he's like, no whispering. He smacks somebody or whatever, and they're all like, ooh. And then whenever they start playing the video, one of the other girls starts whispering, and he fucking just launches
a knife and just wings at her head right between the eyes. I think
that was. I remember when I first watched this a long time ago on DVD when it first came out, and I seen that happen. I was just like, whoa. I know that I'm going to be in for a treat. This is going to be a fucking unreal film.
Yep. Like
a teacher killing a child in front of their friends with a fucking knife to the forehead, just like that.
Just
unreal. And as I said, there's a bit of dark humor there, which maybe didn't get the first time I watched it, but when you watch it now, there is definitely some dark humor. And the way he reacts to it, he kind of, as you say, he's very matter of fact. He doesn't give a shit. He goes over and takes the knife out, and he walks up and he starts the video, and he's like, okay, like, he's watching type thing, basically.
Exactly. He's like, okay, everyone pay attention again, and he's just getting their attention, and it's insane. It's such a good scene, and then we get, I love the girl that's doing all the instruction stuff. She's being very kind of like, doing all the like hand motion, all the hand gestures to go with what she's saying, and showing them all the different stuff. And then she's explaining what's in the bags. They all get a bag with food and water rations, and they get their map and compass and a flashlight, and then they all get supplied with a weapon, some good, some not so good. And then she like lifts the axe up and it's like, oh, somebody got lucky with this one.
I know. It's so good. It's such a great contrast to what is actually fucking happening, and it's a wee bit kind of maybe they go a little bit too far in the sense that it's kind of makes it a little bit less believable. But I loved it. I just thought it was
I feel it's very of the culture, that kind of like OTT, like super cute, super intense, like enthusiastic sort of style you see from those kind of like infomercial type. It's we're a team, but you're also not, you're actually fighting each other, but we're going to put our all into it. I think that's fantastic. I love that.
That's great. And Kitano's reaction to the whole thing is fucking amazing. We forgot to mention they actually have like collars on as well.
Yeah.
Which again, bit of a throwback to the Running Man, where you find out as they explain the rules that they if they last the 3 days and there hasn't been a sole survivor, then this collar will basically explode.
Yep.
It will also explode if they tamper with it, and there's no way that they can take it off, essentially. And then we actually see it happening. Now, it's not a full head explosion. It's more of a,
like bursts their artery, and
it's almost like a getting sliced with a samurai sword or something. Their whole neck just explodes out.
Blows a hole in the neck and makes them bleed out. And then it happens to Nobu. Of course, we see in that scene, he gets basically made an example of.
Nobu, you're right, yeah.
And his neck gets blown out, and the blood's everywhere and just pouring all over the floor. And was it? It's also if they're in the danger zone. A danger zone is called every. It's every 12. Every 12 on the 12 hour and the 6 hour, so 4 times a day, they get told where the danger zones are, and if they're in the danger zone and they're not out by the time the countdown finishes, it'll blow as well if they're in the danger zone.
Which is which is what happens in Fortnite. There's a gas that comes in, and it forces everyone to go to a certain part of the island, which means that they can't hide. And it's the same for Call of Duty Warzone. They stole that idea as well. But I just think it's crazy how influential this film is on popular culture today.
Yep.
So they continue with the rules. They explain the rules. It's 3 days in total. I think they've got to stay on the island, and just the video's amazing. As you say, it's like very over the top, enthusiastic. The girl's like plucked from an anime, like she's so over the top. But she says a line at the very end where it's, "Life is a game, so fight for survival to see if you're worth it." And I just thought that was quite a powerful line, and kind of sums the whole film up. It's asking these kids, is your life worth it? Do you deserve to be here? And it's quite horrible when you think about it like that, but
do you deserve to be here by killing your friends, by killing your classmates,
killing your mates? So then they
hand out the bags.
They start handing out the bags. They name everyone, number 1 girl, number 2 girl. That's how they name them throughout the whole movie. They do announcements every couple of hours or every hour?
It's on the 12 hour and the 6 hour.
Right.
They do the announcements for who's died during that 6 hour block.
Which there's certain moments in the movie whenever Kitano does the announcements. Again, very humorous, because there's music playing in the background, and he's just like very nonchalant, just be like, "Girl number 22 dead, boy number 13 dead," or whatever. So
he's very much just like, that's the way it goes.
I know. He's so good in this. He's so good.
I love that, and we get that first kind of. It's in the bit where they're throwing the bags, and we're kind of seeing the reaction. The kids are kind of acting a bit, or no, even before that, when the kids. So after Nobu's throat blows out, they all try to run out. They try to run away, and all the kids they run towards the door. But then the army starts firing. They just start firing. They fire at the roof, and then they fire at the floor to try and like push them back. And it's just like, no, come on.
I know.
We got to do this.
We got guns.
Yeah, exactly. We've got guns, and you'll all get back, and you'll get your bags, and then you fuck off out to the island. So then we get to see each of the individual kids going out and their reaction as they're kind of leaving. And I think that establishes a lot of how those characters react, then how we're going to see them act out on the island, and also who's kind of buddy with who, because you kind of get, especially with the girls and stuff, they're all kind of hugging and being like, oh, we'll be friends and we'll see each other through this and all that there. So we're seeing a lot of how everyone's going to pair off. We're seeing the cliques.
Aye. It's a great scene, very simple scene, but because they take their time and they do kind of, they essentially name nearly all the students. They maybe skip a few in the middle, but I know just before that, whenever Nobu dies, we get some really good acting from the kid who plays Nanahara.
Yep.
And we see a few of the dynamics with the other children, who's friends with who and that. And it's very simple, but it does help with the remainder of the film whenever you see the cliques and what happens later on.
Yeah, and we get to see the two transfer students, or described as transfer students, and how they react, and you immediately think the dude with the bandana is going to be like the asshole, the kind of like hothead who's out for his own and is going to kill everybody. And I really like that it flips in the film, that we actually, it's not what we initially think. He's only mad because he's mad at the establishment, he's mad at the army, and he's mad at the teacher. and he's making a point of surviving, which is why he then goes back to grab his bag. He's like, that's my bag. Because obviously he's done this before, he's seen it before, he knows what bag's got the good shit in. And then the orange-haired dude's playing it cool, and the teacher has to tell him to hurry up, get a move on. But he's trying to play it all cool.
I think he's even
being the one.
He's even got his collar up or something, doesn't he?
He's
so cool.
Pop collar. He's walking real slow. He's just like, whatever, man. But he's actually the one that ends up being the psychopath.
The fucking the dick.
Nutter.
I can't remember his name, but I'll try and figure out as we go on through this chat. But I just love how it starts because they're thrown out at night, so it's pitch darkness. They go out one by one. Now, if it was me, if I was the number one person, I'd be standing at the fucking door.
Yeah, it basically is though. The fella who was number one's like the wee fat guy, and he's the first one that jumps out. Sure, he jumps out on Nanahara, or no, the girl jumps out on Nanahara with the crossbow bolt through her neck.
That's right.
And then the wee fat boy jumps out with his crossbow after Nanahara, and it's a bit like, and then he falls down a hill and drops it, and then the other boy that's come out behind him like picks up and is like, oh. Is this yours?
Here you go,
and then the wee fat guy's like charges him. So the boy falls back and ends up shooting him in the heart. So I mean, the first boy does end up dying. Well, no, he doesn't die first. He dies second because the girl who's got the crossbow bolt through the neck dies. But
it's class, yeah, because she kind of walks out and she's all confused and she's like, "What's happening?" And you just see the crossbow and you're like, "Fuck, love your deed."
Yeah,
that's what's happening.
Big spike through neck.
I know. And then the wee chubby guy's like, ooh.
Yeah, he's just freaking out because you can tell even before when he's get the bag thrown at him, he is absolutely like losing his mind,
shitting himself.
Mm-hmm.
As you would, but I thought it was funny when the guy was like, "Oh, did you drop this?"
Yeah, he's just like, "Is this yours?"
I know. So immediately we get a couple of people straight away are dead, and then you get Nanahara and Noriko have a wee moment. And
they go off to the seaside, don't they?
They sort of partner up.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of kind of cliques and partnerships throughout the movie, which I think is great because obviously you get a few loners that are out for blood because they know that this isn't just a game, this is real life and we have to do it to survive. And it's interesting to see what kids just say, right, fuck it, I'm going to kill these. And then other kids are like, no, let's just wait out and see what happens.
The motivation of the characters is very clear throughout. We kind of we get reasons for why they do it, whether it be in their actions or whether it be like a wee flashback or an internal monologue. But we kind of have a reason for the way that they act, which I think is very good. I don't think the only one that really is killing for the sake of killing is the orange-haired boy. We don't really get a reason for why he's so psychotic. He just is.
But I love how the group dynamic of, the kids whenever they start forming cliques and groups, and it's kind of a little bit Lord of the Flies-y because, you get the high...
Lord of the Flies.
Especially with the girls later on when they're hiding out. I mean, there's 4 or 5 girls, at the lighthouse, and they rescue Nanahara and they're bringing him back. He's been injured and stuff, and they're fucking loving life. They're cooking up spaghetti and all, and soup or whatever. And there's everything's going great until one of the girls who had witnessed Nanahara accidentally killing one of the students earlier, she wants to try and poison him. I know we're going way ahead here, but we'll just talk about it because we're talking about the group dynamic here. And then all of a sudden the group just completely splits and she goes mad, and because she tries to poison Nanahara's food, but one of the other girls ends up taking the food off the stove and eating it, and then she obviously dies. So just paranoia goes completely crazy and everyone starts killing each other, and it just shows you how quickly things can break down. There's a hierarchy there as well because one of the girls says something like, who put you in charge or something like that. I can't remember the exact wording, but I just think it's fascinating. And that scene, I love that scene. Like, that was amazing. It's
brilliant. It's the fact that, Nanahara is kind of locked away during all this. He's freaking out. But the way the girls are kind of talking to each other, and it's, the one girl, the girl with the glasses has the Uzi, and she's just kind of going, just keeps going back and forth between all of them. But the girl who's actually done the poisoning never actually gets blamed. She's just kind of tucked away in a corner. And again, she's kind of seen as like the little mousy one who's a bit sort of afraid of everything and is afraid of Nanahara because she believes he killed him on purpose. And, you know, she never gets kind of expected. And it's interesting to see, again, that dynamic of the quiet one. It's always the quiet one as well in there. And yeah, it's fantastic scene. And again, as I said earlier, I love the imagery of the lighthouse and even later on when we see that the girl who did the poison actually then runs the whole way up the lighthouse to the top, and we don't actually see it happen, but Nanahara goes up later, then he looks down and we get the kind of shot down the lighthouse then to the rocks below where she's obviously thrown herself off. And it's I love that scene. It's all very white and blue. And I love the blues. I love the blues.
We love a bit of blue. Don't love
the
bit of
blues.
blue. But yeah, there's quite a few suicides happening as well because the kids being young, not understanding what is going to happen, scared of what might happen, having the ability to not want to kill your friends just for the sake of surviving, and then they actually take their own lives. It's very, very sad. We see there's a boy and a girl who hang themselves.
We actually get two couples that hang themselves. Right. There's kind of one early on, and then there's another one later on. And then there is two of them jump off a cliff.
That's right, yeah, they jump off the cliff.
So we get three couple suicides on the island, and then obviously Nanahara's father we see is another suicide. So there's quite a lot about sort of suicide and stuff in this, and I think it is because there is a kind of I think not a culture of suicide in Japan, but they're very kind of open about it, and they're very much like, this is something that happens here. And I think it's just to do with like the stresses and stuff.
I was thinking about that actually in Japanese culture and stuff, and apparently the writer of the novel was a little bit anti-culture in Japan. He didn't like the idea that there was all these sort of things set in your life that you had to do because you were Japanese for cultural reasons. And I think the whole thing about the suicide, it's a thing that you see a lot in films where, it's out of pride, where the Japanese would rather die before they, maybe give some information up, or before they get arrested, or before they are humiliated for some reasons or whatever, they kind of kill themselves. You see it a lot in kind of Yakuza movies and all those kind of movies, and even back to ancient Japan, you see it a lot. So yeah, it's obviously a cultural thing that has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years in Japanese history, and they kind of used it a little bit to modernize it for these kids on this fucking island in this horrible game that they're being forced to take part in.
They'd sooner take their own lives than take that of their friends, because
exactly
it's a dishonorable act.
Exactly.
This film doesn't really hold back. The only time I think it holds back is, and it's quite good in that it doesn't sexually exploit. We kind of get a reference. We get a reference to the boy who's like, oh, come on, let's just do it. We're going to die anyway. And she fights back. She fights back against him, and it's just like, why I wouldn't sleep with you if you were the last man standing or whatever. And he ends up dead because the wee pervert. But then we get another quick kind of cut later on where the girl psychopath of the film, the one that's kind of going around killing everybody because she didn't want to be a loser anymore, she's kind of putting her shirt back on and walking away, and there's two boys on either side of her who are dead, but they're bare naked, and it's very clear that they've been like mutilated. And again, it's not explicit in what's happened in that situation, but we can kind of gather what sort of happened from it. But I appreciate the fact that they didn't feel the need to show that, because they could have. No. The fact is that the film doesn't hold back, but it held back there, and I think that's quite good. There was a lot more horrible things they could have shown. They were like, no, we're showing just enough.
Well, in that scene, you don't need to see the setup. Like, in fact, it's even more shocking just cutting to her walking away, and she's putting her cardigan on or something, or whatever she's doing, and the guys are both naked and they've had their dicks cut off, basically. There's blood coming from their genitals area. They're clearly dead, but they've been lured in for sexual reasons and
by a Black Widow.
By a Black Widow, I know.
Ooh.
But she's fucking phenomenal. in this movie.
Really
She has a
is.
couple of great scenes where she sort of plays the innocent one. She's all like, "Oh, I'm
Very
here for a
femme
reason."
fatale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then it turns around and she ends up fucking turning on her
Everybody.
mates. And
She
in fact,
turns on
I think
everybody.
the first time we see her actually is in that little hut where she comes in at night and she's got the torch, and it's like that whole shining the torch under her face. But she's phenomenal. Great
Really good.
scenes.
It's
I
the
mean,
way and the way she kind of turns on people and stuff as well. That introduction to her character on the island is fantastic. With the girl with the Polaroids, he's got the zapper and the taser, and she's just like, "Oh, what weapon did you get?" And then the girl's like, "Oh, I got this," and she's kind of playing with it, and then the other girl's like takes it and just turns on her with it. And then she was like, "This is my weapon." I thought it was kind of lame at first, but now I can see the benefits when she's got it around your girl's neck, and then just opens her up. Madness.
I know. She's fucking brilliant. Nanahara is really the only one that kind of, well, he's not the only one that questions it, but he's a driving force that's questioning everything in the film, and he shouts at one of the kids, why are you doing this, or how do you find it so easy to do this to your friends? And that's questioning the system. It's questioning everything that the filming is about, really, and he's the only one that kind of ever really does that. Obviously, Noriko does as well, and some of the other guys do later on whenever as the film progresses.
Those two are definitely the moral of the film. They're the two moral, and again, we kind of later on see Nanahara. He comes back with guns, and he's like, "I brought guns," and she's like, "But why guns?" And he was like, "I was weak." And I think that speaks a lot of their characters. Like he's given in to the violence. He's brought guns, which are the instruments of violence. He's allowed himself to bring them with him after being at the lighthouse. And she questions him. She's like, "Why did you do it? Why did you give in to it?" So ultimately, I feel like, and again, we see that later. Why she's kind of the chosen one with the teacher is that she doesn't let herself be taken in by the violence of it all.
And then as the film progresses, you meet these three guys who are, I suppose, one of them is
mates.
One of them is very, very smart, and he hacks into the system. He finds a computer and he creates this kind of hacking system, and he hacks into the system of the collar, and they're able to fix the collars so that they can turn them off, and that happens for a brief, I think it's 15 minutes or something. He said he's able to hack into the system for a while, but it gives them the opportunity to move and do things that
get their bomb gear together.
It's hidden, yeah, and obviously they try to get like a propane tank or something. And
propane was it? He's been getting his uncle was a freedom fighter and has been sending him postcards and has sent him what I assume is the Anarchist Cookbook. And yeah, so they've been getting together pesticides and fertilizer, and they've made up 2 car bombs, and they have like 3 propane tanks, and they've made Molotovs, and they fill a truck up with it. That's right. But I like it when he's obviously like the ringleader, and he's kind of like getting them to go out and gather all this stuff. And there's kind of a Three Stooges thing to those characters. He's kind of like bunking them on the head, and they're like, "Oh, why do you want to go get all this stuff?" And he's like, "Just do it, you dumbo." I thought that was quite good. I like those 3 characters, and
they're definitely comic relief, because whenever they come back, they're like, "Oh, we got your stuff and all," and they give him all the shite, and they still don't really fully understand what he's trying to do, what he's trying to achieve. But I love how their flashlights are tied to like their hats and stuff.
It's the one boy. One of the boys
got a pot
like
or something.
A bottle. One of them's got a pot, and the other one's got like a plastic bottle that's been strapped to his head, and the torch like stuck in the plastic bottle. But he's the one that I like that one, the one that's kind of got longer hair, because when he's dying, even when he's dying, he's still like laughing. And I think there's a lot of that in this. I feel that the deaths in this, some of them are really over the top. Like, I mean, they're riddled with bullets, absolutely riddled with bullets, but they're still kind of going like,
I know.
But then there's other ones where it's that initial shock of what's just happened to them that they kind of still are like, "Oh, we're gonna make it through this," and then they die. but you know, it's not immediately like, oh, I'm dead,
I
I'm
know.
dying. They kind of are still in the moment of whatever it was they were thinking, just as they got shot or stabbed or arrowed or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, I know. It's quite sad when his mate dies actually,
Mm-hmm.
because he said something like, he grabs him. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna make it out together,"
Yeah, yeah.
because he had asked him, he had questioned, "Oh, if this works, will we get out together?" And he was like, "Yeah." So it's quite sad, and he's realised that they're
It's
not
just,
going to do that.
it's a sad one, but it's also I felt the reaction, his death reaction was very, very genuine.
Mm.
In that moment, it wasn't something like, I'm dying, friend.
Mm.
Yeah, I think some of the deaths in this are fantastic and sad, and some of the deaths are just OTT,
Well,
super violent and silly.
I was going to say that one of the most over the top parts is whenever big orange hair guy, I can't remember his name, cool dude, comes out of the house and it's on fire and there's a big explosion and they're all like riddling with machine guns and he eventually dies. But that whole scene was just so over the
Man,
top. It was
I
unreal.
love it's when he kind of your boy's walking up, but down a boy's walking up to him, and it's not immediately obvious, but he like spins his head around and he's blind. The blast is like blinded him, and he's just got like those two trickles of
That's
blood
right.
coming down his face, and he's wearing like the cloudy lenses, and it's just the like manic look on his face as he's trying to like obviously listen for for your fellow coming up behind him, and then he just starts spraying the bullets. But the thing that kind of got me there, it's like surely a bomb blast is more likely to deafen you than blind you. But you know,
I know. That's true. I suppose it depends what the chemical was. Maybe it was a chemical blast. But
possibly,
come on,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. But still a great scene. I mean,
I
that
know.
just the fact that it's like nighttime and they're just like surrounded by fire, and they're obviously like in this kind of field of
Mm-hmm.
wheat or something, and it's very something. There was something very kind of samurai about it. Like you wanted him because he does actually before that scene. He's got a samurai sword when he like jumps down on your boy with it. It would have been kind of cool to see a bit of a samurai movie throwback in there because it was well set for it. The location and the lighting and all would have been really nice for it. But it's still great. And as I said, I love that kind of when his head spins and you see the blind eyes and you're just like, whoa.
Ooh, spooky.
Whoa, spooky boy.
Class. But so basically, you have Nanahara, Nariko, and Kawada are essentially the last three, and they do that thing where they play a trick. They're nasty. They play a little trick on Kitano,
A little trick.
and Kawada's like, "No, I told you that story because I was planning on using you to get my freedom."
Yeah.
But he knows there's obviously a listening device in the collar, and they're doing this as a trick. It's a very strange kind of ending because obviously this is a trick. Nanahara and Noriko are still alive and they've done this so that they can escape together and stuff. But the whole relationship with Kitano and Noriko is strange to me because I'd forgotten about this from the first time I'd watched it. And when I was rewatching it, I was like, that's right, there's something weird going on between those two because you get a weird flashback, don't you?
No, well, there's the dream. It's a dream.
Sorry, it's a dream.
And you can kind of tell because all the other flashbacks are just done like normal, but then this has like a hue. It's got kind of a light hue to it, and they're sitting on the riverbank eating ice cream, and then they get up and walk away, but then they kind of turn and face each other, and then it's just like a medium shot of her saying something, but we don't actually ever hear or get any like subtitles of what's said. We just see their mouths moving, and she says something and he says something back, and that's it. And then she wakes up and she's like, oh, I just had a dream about this, but we don't actually, there's no real meaning to it. It's just the fact that they're kind of mates.
Is that what you think it is? Or just
it's just kind of it's obviously like he obviously idolizes her as like being the prime example of what the teenagers what they should be, but I don't understand why she's dreaming about him.
Yeah, so in that, and it's not sexual or anything. They don't really go that way. I mean, there may be something there, but they don't go in that direction anyway.
No, whether or not he knew that she would plan something where they would all live, or maybe he thought she would have been able to plan ahead and not get killed. But he also kind of, I feel like he knew she wouldn't give in to the violence. Like that's a big thing, is that he knows she's that pure of spirit that she wouldn't give in. And I think that's again heightened by the fact that she has this heavenly glow coming off her in the painting he does. He kind of deitizes her.
She's like an angel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then the more I thought about it, the more I kind of thought, was he doing this as a test for her, specifically just for her, to see if she could survive and if she was worthy of life? I suppose, because he clearly had affection for her. He loved her. He maybe wasn't in love with her, but he definitely loved her.
Yeah.
So
it was. I think it was definitely like a father-daughter relationship. It's the daughter he wished he had, because we get early on we get the phone call with his daughter where she's saying, you need to come back and look after mum, and he's like, oh well, I'm out on business and I won't be back until tomorrow, and she's like, oh well, I'm going out anyway, so and then she says something like, oh, also your breath stinks, I can smell it down in the phone, wash yourself, something like that. Just real disrespectful to her dad. And he's kind of, you can see he's very defeated after the call. Like when he throws the phone down, he's a bit like and then sure, it's after that when later on then when the three of them, and he texts the final call, the phone rings, that's right, sure. So we'll just talk about it because I fucking love it. I think it's a great scene. The very end when he's just unveiled the painting and he pulls the gun out and he's like, well, only one of you can survive, so I'm going to have to shoot you now. And he goes, and Nana Hara ends up shooting him, riddling him with bullets, and he falls back, lands on the ground. But as he's falling, he like shoots his gun, and it's a fucking water gun. He soaks them, and Nana Hara's like, oh, I said I would protect her. So he's given into the violence now. But again, his reason is he was protecting her. But anyway, he's lying there dead, and then the phone rings. And he just stands up. He just gets up as if nothing happened and walks over and like answers it. And he's just like, I won't be home. I don't care if I have responsibilities. I won't be home. And then he throws the phone down and shoots it. He actually pulls a proper gun out there, shoots it, has the final cookie, which again are her cookies, which he's been eating the whole way through. And earlier on, when one of the army, I don't know, sergeant or captain or whatever, goes to take one, he like takes them off him. He won't let him have any of her cookies. And yeah, you can definitely see there's something, he definitely idolizes her. For whatever reason, I believe it is because it's the daughter he wishes he had.
She's kind of like the perfect child or the perfect student, the perfect human being, I suppose, and that's why he's done this. But
it's probably I think what it could be seen as, and it's kind of just popping in my head now, like, ooh, light bulb. He's what he wants for Japan. She is the ideal Japanese citizen, and that's what he wants the future to be.
So Kawada dies from his wounds, and it is just Nanahara and Narito who's the last two left, and they end up
they go off in a wee boat. I love, you know what? I like the wee boat scene. There's something, when I was watching it last night and the way they're kind of in that wee space, I just got a real like Jaws aesthetic from it. And I just loved it. I love that. And I think it's because I love Jaws so much. I just love the way they're like sitting in the boat. And it's that bit where he goes, it's like, oh, how do you know how to drive a boat? And he's like, my dad was a fisherman, and then does a big laugh. But it's because earlier on in the film, he'd said, when they asked how do you know how to care for her wounds? Oh, my dad was a doctor. And again, it's one of those things where like, what's your deal, man? Like, you're obviously like a decent guy, considering at the start of the film we thought you were going to be the asshole. You've actually turned out to be the decent one. But also, have you been lying to us the whole time?
He's a puzzle, like. He definitely is a
very interesting character. It'd be good to, I think if they ever did anything more with Battle Royale, maybe a wee prequel to his original Battle Royale, a bit more about his character and why he's the way he is. Because I think he's a very interesting character, and I think he's one of the, obviously he's the main player he's one of the main players of the film. But I really like his character. I really like what he sort of stands for. He's kind of like, I've got to do this for me. I've got to understand why she smiled at me like that. But also I need to stand up against the man. I need to show them that I can outsmart them. I can do better than their expectations of me.
Yeah, his story was quite tragic as well, so it would be interesting to see more from him. But when they get back to mainland Japan, it's basically they have become fugitives, and it's kind of that whole sort of, it's like the end of the Matrix, where they're like, oh, we have to keep an eye out, and she's wearing the hat down, and he's covered up and stuff, and they have to basically, you get a little bit of a narration there because they're explaining that they're on the run essentially now for the rest of their lives.
She's gone and seen her parents. She's gone to say goodbye to her parents, and she's gone back into the school and picked up Nobu's knife. From the start of the film, we see the butterfly knife again.
Oh, aye, that's right.
And then that's when they're like, oh, we're fugitives now and we're going on the run. What I really liked about the end of this film, and I think it's because it's very of its time, in the background behind them, you can see banners for the Teletubbies.
Did not notice that.
I know, it's straight away. There's like banners hanging up on the lamppost for Teletubbies. And I was just like, Teletubbies!
Fuck's sake. No, I didn't even notice that, man. But yeah, it's funny. That's fucking funny.
Mm-hmm. What did you take away from Battle Royale?
Teletubbies. What was your kind of favourite kill?
There's the one where the crazy orange-haired boy, he's just riddled your boy with bullets, and he's fallen over like a stack of pallets or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then he's kind of lying there, and then he's like, ha. He does like a wee laugh, and he's like, oh, this bulletproof vest is great. And he kind of gets up, but then we hear a noise, and he looks up and he sees orange-haired boys on the roof, and he just like pulls the the cover of a samurai sword and drops it, and then just leaps down on him. I thought that was pretty, because it's the only time you actually get to see like a samurai sword in the film, which I think is pretty great. They're not playing into like a stereotype or anything; they just kind of have it for that one moment. But I fucking love to see a samurai sword.
That was mine as well. I'm the same man. I fucking love samurai swords, and
give me samurais.
I know. Yeah, I love a good samurai movie, and fucking love samurai swords. Love Kill Bill. Like that's my shit. But yeah, that was probably my favorite kill from the whole movie. I do quite like the very first one. The guy runs at the guy and he just falls back and shoots him with a bow, just because it's so awkward and clearly
awkward accidental deaths. Exactly. Are great because they're kind of like, obviously it's meant to be a bit like, oh, but it's also kind of funny. Like accidental deaths are kind of a bit comedic in the way that they're kind of awkwardly handled. It's a bit of a fumble. It's not meant to happen, so you're kind of just like, oh. I think when there's not an intention to kill, it's not as graphic. It's not as kind of, it's a bit more kind of like, oh.
Yeah, and then you get the guy who gets accidentally hatcheted in the head.
I know. But that's his own fault. He shouldn't have been fucking. What is he doing? Run with an axe? Don't run with axes. Don't run with scissors. Just don't run with sharp things.
Were you not taught this in school? No, you weren't, because you didn't go to fucking school, mate.
Exactly.
You were fucking hanging around the corners.
Learn nothing. Plus, tomahawks are for throwing. That was a throwing axe.
I know.
Daft bastard.
Stupid bastard. Dirty bastard.
Dirty, stupid bastard.
I know. But fucking really enjoyed rewatching Battle Royale.
Me too.
That's us done with this episode of Monday Night Frights. Next week is our penultimate episode of season 2, Danny. Only 2 episodes left.
2 more episodes
in this season.
Will we tell them what they're getting, or we let it be a surprise?
We'll keep it a surprise, but all I will say is the last 2 films are fucking belters, and I can't wait.
Fucking great! Oh, I'm so excited, especially I love the next one. I love the next one. We'll give you a clue. Trees.
Trees.
Trees. Gully goblins. Government. Creatures. Beings.
Government. We'll give you one more clue as well. It was also part of our Fright Club watch party last year. It's one of the films that we watched last year, so that might be a little bit of a clue.
Yeah. And it's also a massive main homages to one of our favourite films that we've already reviewed.
We've already discussed previous episodes, so yes, that's a couple clues there. Leave your comments. Tell us what
your guesses
you think is next week's episode, and also leave your comments on Battle Royale.
What's your favourite kill?
What's your favourite kill? Have you seen the sequel?
Yeah.
Have
you read the book?
Kitano as well. What's your favourite Kitano movie? And so leave all your comments in the comment section below, as always.
And like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell.
Do you know what I was thinking? We keep saying subscribe, but it's actually down here. Down
Down
there,
there, not
hit
there.
that
Down there.
subscribe button.
Hit the subscribe, hit the like, hit
I
the
know.
bell, wherever
Share.
they are.
Like, share, subscribe, comment, tell all your friends. Follow us on Twitter at Fight Club NI. Follow us on Instagram at Fight Club NI. Check the website out, www.thefightclubni.com. Fucking hit that subscribe button.
Hit now.
Hit it now. Hit that bell. Fuck's sake. Anyway, until next week, which is going to be a belter episode.
Can't wait.
We can't wait to talk about it. Oh, I nearly said it, Danny. Oh, I nearly said it. I nearly said it.
Oh, you almost let it slip. Almost let it slip.
It's one of those movies that I've actually heard people say it's one of the worst horror films ever made. And I don't know how anyone could say that because it's such a good popcorn movie.
Yeah. It's a horror fan's comfort watch.
I'll give you one last clue.
Oh, go on.
And this might give it away.
Oh, you big tease.
There's a superhero with an axe in it. That's all I'm saying. Until next week, take care, stay safe. All the best, guys.
Bye.